Hey guys, welcome to another video, and today we're looking at the FAME Studio Reverb from Ik Multimedia. It's finally been released, and in celebration of that fact, I'm wearing my German t-shirt, my Duisburg t-shirt. Yeah, that's one for the Germans, they'll get that. Okay, so here it is, the FAME Studio Reverb. Basically, this gives you the sound of one of the most famous studios in history, the Muscle Shoals studio in Alabama, on your door. I've got a bit of soul music I'm going to play through this. Each of these instruments, the brass, the drums, the bass and the guitar, have got a little bit of an auxiliary send out to this reverb. Okay? Different amounts. So it's just one reverb for everything, and each section of the band is sending into it slightly different amounts. This is Studio A, and each studio has a different set of mic position switches. So we'll go through them. And you can have the mics in the different positions, which will be set by the engineers. These would be the best positions to put the bass, the drums, organ, electric keyboards, vocals and guitars and piano in that studio space when recording the traditional old way, where everyone's in the room playing at once, one tape recording. Okay, so they're the best sweet spots for those instruments. And you can listen in broad or focus mode. And this section is labelled spread. And in essence, it does what it says on the tin. Broad, the main pair of left-right wet mics are spread out further, and focus, they're brought in a bit, is the best way I can describe it. But bear in mind there are these two mono channels for the main rooms. Okay, we'll look at all this in detail in a bit further, right? So let's go through and listen. I'll switch through the different source positions in Studio A, and then I'll show you them again in broad and then in focus, so you can hear the difference of that as well. Okay, let's start off by listening to it on this bit of music. I'll turn the output up a bit so we can exaggerate it. Here we go. Let me just check I've got the output set. Yeah, I have. Here we go. Okay, that's in and out. Let's step through the mic positions now, and then we'll go with broad and focused. Here we go. And you can hear as you switch between different mic positions, reflections are different in left, right. The tonal quality changes. Some of them have got more bass, more mid-range, less bass, less mid-range, and you get phase shifting happening as well. Okay, let's go through and now listen, switching between broad focused. fantastic stuff. Big difference between the positions and broad and focus. Let's go to Studio B now. Boom. Okay, in this studio get 4 different mic positions. Again, broader focused. Turn the output up a smidge. I'll drop the in and out. You can hear the difference on the default, which is for everyone you load the default is drums. Here we go. Okay, let's step through the mic positions and I'll show you them in focused and broad. Here we go, in broad initially. Oop. Okay, let's step through now. I'll compare broad and focused. Here we go. Fantastic stuff, man. Okay, that's the 2 main studios. We'll come to all the other features in a bit with the different positions, broad or focus. It makes a huge difference how these are set. You can really hear the sound changing. Okay, the booths now. Studio A has 3 booths, which you know, like with the sunset sound, you can look around with this thing. So we're in booth 1 here. There's booth 2, and the far away there is booth 3. Okay, so the 3 booths in Studio A are labelled vocals, amps, and Leslie drums, and again you can listen broad focused. One thing to note, with the main room you get, let's go back to one of the main rooms. With the main room you get 2 mono channels as well as the main left right wet pair. When we switch to the booths, okay, we only get the main wet left right pair. We don't get the mono channels anymore, okay, but we can switch between broad and focus. So let's hear these now. Turn the output up a smidge. I'll drop in and out so you can hear the difference, then we'll go through them. Here we go. Okay, let's step through. Here we go. A little more output. And now between broad and focused. Okay, and then Studio B booths. Okay, there are just 2 booths in Studio B labelled vocals or amps, but again, you can switch between broad and focus. I'll drop it in and out so you can hear the difference, and then we'll go through the positions. Here we go. Jubbly. Right, next, the chamber. You can switch to listen with either dynamic or condenser mics. Okay. There is decay for all of these spaces, including this chamber and pre-delay. We'll come to that. So let's just listen to the difference between these. Dynamic. Condenser. It's a bit smoother, yeah? So that's your chamber. We'll come to all the other things because by default you've got the 2 mics and they're just panned left right. Okay, there's no spread for the chamber. And but you can adjust the pan and just work with one to use mono and all the rest of it. We'll come to that. Okay, that's the chamber, and then the plate. There are 3 presets: long, medium, and short. But once you've loaded it, you can switch manually. Short is the 500 milliseconds, medium is the 2.5 second, and long is the 5 second. Okay, it doesn't. This isn't an EMT 140. I think it's an American Echo plate, probably, but don't quote me on that. Let's just turn the output up a smidge. And, you know, like all plates, or particularly this one, as you go for shorter and shorter sounds, the damper is being used increasingly, and so it takes away the lower content more and more and more the shorter it gets, right? So this is 1/2 second. 1.5 seconds. 2.5 seconds. And you can hear as the damper is rolled off to get longer times, more and more bottom end comes into that plate. 3.5 seconds. Oh yeah. 4.5 seconds. A lot more bottom end now, but I'm feeding the bass into it, etc. And 5 seconds. Let's just hear the drums through it. 1/2 second drums only. So, straight away, that is like a Tamla intro, isn't it? I mean, that really is. It's like Jimmy Mac or something. Oh no, not Jimmy Mac. You're sweet like a honeybee. It sounds like that intro. Bit slow though. So yeah, 1/2 second. 1.5. 2.5. 3.5. And again, you can hear that more bottom end coming in as the damper is rolled off. And 5 seconds. Yeah, lovely jubbly. Let's try it with the bass now. Sorry, just the horns. Half second. 1.5 seconds. 2.5. 3.5. Oh, lovely. 4.5. You can really hear the sound moving around that steel plate. Oh, in the decay. And 5 seconds. Ooh. But with any of these times, you can use the decay here. And some pre-delay. Well, that's with some of the stuff, you've got to turn it up more before you start to notice it. If you're not using the dry channel. Etc. Right, we'll come to all this in a bit. Okay, she's playing. Okay, so that's all your different basic spaces. The two main studios with their booths, the plate, and the chamber. Now let's go back to the main studio A, live room broad. Okay, now you can add pre-delay and you can adjust the decay. Right, so we'll leave everything stock otherwise, and let's bring everything back in for this. You know, so I can add some pre-delay to taste, but this thing goes up to 1 second, right? So you can actually use it to introduce like a sort of a colossal amount of pre-delay and have the reverb come back in to create an almost a sort of reverb echo. There's only one repeat, but it's insane, that, right? But and you know, we're in an ambient largish space here. Just turn that up a smidge. But I can roll off the decay and shorten it. Etc. Okay, so you've got pre-delay and decay, and that works on every single one of the impulse responses across all the different spaces. Further to that, there's a EQ. Now the high pass and the low pass go from 10 Hz to 20k, both of them, and they are pre-reverb. So I can stop the bottom end getting into the reverb like that. Or stop the top end getting in like that. But because these are both, you know, have extreme ranges, 10 Hz to 20k, I could do something like, I could put this at 1k. Let's put it, say, at 2k, and then bring up the high pass and set that at like 800 Hz. You can actually type those in if you want, double click and like type in 800 or whatever it is you want. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm severely restricting, I'm creating a band pass going into the reverb. Only frequencies between 800 Hz and 2k are going to get in. Which gives me that honky mid-range focus thing. Or let's drop this down to 1k. And we just got this very sort of mid-range focus between 800 Hz and 1k. just 200 hertz of bandwidth getting through. I mean, there's obviously roll off each side of that, but anyway, it's very, very versatile, these two pre-filters leading into the reverb, because you can sculpt the sound going in to tune in exactly the frequencies that you want to be treated with the space. Now, after the reverb, on the output, there's a high and low shelf. Whoop, lower that back down. So plenty of tuning opportunities as well. You can really sculpt the sound to what you want, and that's on top of the different positions. I'm just sticking with one position and the broad focused. But there's more. In the case of the main rooms, we get two mono channels as well as the main left-right wet pair. Okay, now by default they're linked. They can be unlinked, in which case you can set them separately, but linked you can just easily adjust them as a pair and adjust their pan as a pair. You can even invert the pan. Okay, but we have the two mono channels, so if you want, you can just use the mono channels. Well, let's just use one mono channel, and now we've got a mono reverb in the drum position. And just using the one of the two mono mics and changing position does change the sound again, even though it's a single mic, 'cause it's being moved around. So have a listen. So you can start to do all sorts of things. I could just use both of these and pan them out a little bit. I mean, it really is like you're in a room. Or we could say, well, we're not going to use the mono mics, we'll just use the wet pair, and they could be panned as much as you want. That's very tight, that one, when it's in focus, and we're just using these only. Do you know what I mean? So you can set up all sorts of things. So let me have one mono going that way, just the one. This one we won't use, and then one of this pair panned out the other way, and then these two a little bit lower, panned opposite as well, but lower. So we're getting mostly that and mostly that. etc. I mean, it's incredibly versatile. It really is. So I could do, let's say, we'll have these two a little bit louder than usual, and we'll have them not panned out completely, let's say that, and then these, let's gang them, and then there we go, and then I can just mess with the pan of this pair as a pair against these two. That's just a few examples. You can mess and mess and mess with the combination of the different positions. This is the same in Studio B. The different positions combined with the option of broad or focused, and then all the different ways you can mix and match or change the way these channels are behaving against each other. You can go with mono or stereo, dual stereo, mess around with the pan positions, etc. It's really versatile. And then you've got your EQ and filters and everything as well. It's really deep, man. This thing's it's just fantastic. It really is. So just to give you an example, there are the insert and send presets are identical, just that the send ones don't have the dry turned up, whereas if you choose the same ones from the insert menu, they load up with the dry turned up because it'll be on an insert. But there are these few special ones. So for example, this one, pan guitar, if you load that, let's mute all this. I've actually got a little guitar there. So the way this is working is, and it's not inserted, so it won't kind of work completely properly, but the way this is working, it's set to Studio Room A, the vocal guitar position in focus mode, and you've got one of the mono channels panned out slightly to the left, and then the dry channel panned out slightly to the right. But there's a little bit of pre-delay, delaying that mono channel. So it's just going to give you this panning guitar thing. You know, that kind of thing like that. You can do all that kind of stuff. There's another one here called Monovintage Vocal, and this is just one of the mono mics. That's it. Yeah. In vocal guitar position, a little bit of bass rolled off leading into it, and a little bit of treble lift on the output, and a little bit of pre-delay in focus mode. Yeah. Just give me this mono straight down the middle thing, right? Another one is slapping booth. Okay, now this is one of the booths, set to amps, focused, but quite a lot of pre-delay with the decay rolled off. There's some filtering being applied, but essentially it's some dry versus the wet with 80 milliseconds of pre-delay, which give you a slapping small booth sound because the decay's rolled off as well. And you can increase the amount of that slap with the pre-delay. Oh, that's a beautiful sound. That it's really versatile. This man, vintage mono chamber. This is just the chamber set to dynamic with only one channel being used, panned straight down the center. So it's a mono old, sound of the chamber being picked up by a dynamic mic. A little bit of pre-delay and the bass end rolled off, a little bit of treble lift on the output. it's really versatile, this thing. Incredibly versatile. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think I've shown you enough really. Other features is there's this modern vintage switch, but man, this is incredibly subtle. Basically, it's set to modern in almost all the presets that you load. Studio A is currently rocking a Neve console, and Studio B is currently rocking an SSL console. So in modern, all impulse responses were tracked through the Neve for Studio A and the SSL for Studio B. If you switch to vintage, then all the impulse responses were tracked through the original preamps that Muscle Shoals used to use back in its sort of, let's say, glory days, which was the Universal Audio 610 preamp with a little 2-band EQ. The same preamp that those new Universal Audio Volt audio interfaces have just been released, and they've got a button that switches in the vintage preamp sound, which is an emulation of the Universal Audio 610. So that's what they used to use back in the old days when Wilson Pickett and Otis Redding and all those people were recording there, probably built into a custom frame because Universal Audio didn't really make frames for people. Yeah, so but when you switch between them, it's very, very subtle. If anything, it's just slightly smoother and a little bit less airy, the vintage one. Otherwise, it's really subtle. Also, obviously, there's an input and output adjuster, and you can mono sum the signal coming into the input if you want. Obviously, that's if it's a stereo signal to begin with, right? Fantastic, absolutely brilliant. As usual, it has the undo redo buttons that Ik Multimedia plugins have. There's nothing to do with your DAW. All their plugins have this on the wrapper, which allows you to undo and redo to your heart's content, and the bank copy and paste, which allows you to, like, say if I set a sound up, say if I was to set up the main live room, and I was going to roll off the bass going in and give it some treble boost on the way out and give it a bit of a pre-delay and have it on whatever position and then mess with the pan of these a little bit or something, I don't know. However, I've got it, right? And that's in A. So if I copy it and paste it to B, C or D, it's now in B. A and B are identical. So I could tweak B, just sort of change it somehow, and then switch between the two as I listen and decide the one I want. And you can have up to 4 of those. Yeah, very useful feature. Again, nothing to do with the DAW. This will be in any DAW. It's part of the wrapper of all the T-RackS plugins. Okay. So yeah, amazing, this thing. Absolutely amazing. They've really done an incredible job. So 2 main studios with different positions, broader focused, all the different fader variations you can do, the EQ, pre-delay, decay, etc, etc. This thing, you start off thinking, well, it's just going to give me the sound of Muscle Shoals, but it goes way deeper than that, this thing. It really does go way deeper than that. It does. So as I said at the start, you can think of this. This is not some algorithm reverb that will give you massive, huge decaying halls that diffuse off into beautiful fizz or something like that. What this is a toolbox of room and ambient spaces with the extra of the chamber and the plate, taken by coincidence from one of the most famous recording studios, which has a sound in its room and its booths, but with supreme tweakability and adjustability to make it way, 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 way more versatile than just simply imposing the ambient space of those different Muscle Shoals rooms and spaces onto your music. It's very clever, very, very clever indeed. And the sound quality is extraordinary. It's just, just to finish off and to wax lyrical for a moment, a little slurp of coffee. When you think about it, how far we've come, I mean, my God, I was lucky in the old days that I got to work in pro studios. So I when home studios were still using spring reverbs, I was able to be using, lexicons and AMSs and what have you. But I mean, if you think back to when, like, the first digital reverbs that home studios could afford, the MIDI verb, the microverb, and things like, digital reverbs from the likes of Korg and Roland, etc. I mean, and now in our door we can have the sound of like Muscle Shoals studio. It's just ridiculous. It's insane. The sound quality is extraordinary. You dial it in and you listen, and the way that when you switch between the mic positioning, the way that you hear things shift, not just, you know, the tonal quality shifts, phase quality, you can hear little phasing shifts, and the reflections change, and it's extraordinary how this thing works. It really is. Man, seriously, how far we've come, and how far Ik Multimedia have come. If you remember, like the very early days, around the year 2000, when they first brought out T-RackS, which is a little tiny standalone mastering, not a plug-in, wouldn't work in a DAW, it was standalone. You put your music through it, it had an EQ and a compressor and a multiband compressor, I think. Good, it was good, but I mean, oh God, how far they've come. And they're really on game, aren't they, at the moment, Ik Multimedia? My God, they're on a roll. But that's just how much things have changed. I mean, look at a company like Native Instruments, huge corporation now. I remember the old days back around the same time when Ik Multimedia just released T-RackS, and Native Instruments was just a little group of guys working out of an office above a kebab shop in Berlin. You know what I mean? It's like, I know. So I used to talk to them quite regularly back then, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't, you know, our office is above a kebab shop in some part of Berlin," which was handy to nip downstairs and grab a kebab in between coding sessions. Do you know what I mean? But my God, how far things have come, and now we can have the sound of these iconic studios in our DAW. It's insane. So this is another one, because obviously Ik Multimedia have also got the Sunset sound. I wonder what studio they'll do next. I mean, some of the studios are tied up, like Abbey Road's probably done a deal already with whoever. So I don't know, but who knows which studio they might come up with next, or what product they're going to come up with next. Very clever company, aren't they? Okay, so I hope that's given you a taste of it. I will do some other videos on this. I wanna try on some guitar music with vocals. I think it would work well on. I've got a punk band I've been mixing recently, and I'm going to set it up so that I can try putting that band through this. There's a prog band I mixed recently as well. I might try that on it as well. But I'd be interested to hear what it's like on it, particularly on a punk, thrashy, garage type band. Of the type that I just mixed recently. It could work really well on that, actually, because you get that ambient in the studio sound space on that kind of really gritty, edgy, grunky music. It could really work well, actually. So there it is, the FAME Studio Reverb from Ik Multimedia. It is, as I said, a toolbox of studio and ambient spaces, as well as the plate and the chamber, but taken from one of the most famous studios in the world. I mean, this thing it really surprised me how versatile it is when you start messing with the additional features. The positioning, the broader focus, combined with the way you can do the different channels and EQ, pre-delay and decay and all the rest of it. Very, very clever indeed. Okay, sure. I hope that's been useful to you. Please subscribe to the channel and stick your notifications on. That would be good. I'd like to grow this channel more and more and more. There's things coming up down the pipe. I'm rebuilding this room. I'm going to put a full old school hardware setup in it with a mixer and a multi-track and a rack of effects and loads of MIDI outboard, and we're going to start doing traditional sound recording tutorials and integrating MIDI kit with DAW tutorials and all the rest of it. We've got the new website coming in the new year, when I can get my rear end out of gear and get it finished. A lot of work to do with that still though. Okay, so please get subscribed, put the word out. I'd like to grow the channel more and more and more. And look, by the way, look in the description. There's a link there straight to the FAME Reverb page on our Ik Multimedia's website. Yeah. Thanks to Paul. Thank you very much, Paul. Ik Multimedia UK, who gave me a preview of this to show to you. I will emphasise though that they have no input into what I'm going to say. They don't get to see it before I put it online or anything like that. Okay, but I am really impressed with this, and I'm not just saying that. The sound of this thing is extraordinary. It really is. It really is, as I said, a toolbox of studio and ambient spaces, but taken from one of the most iconic studios in the world. This thing is epic, and I can see all sorts of ways this could be useful to different producers and engineers working in different fields. I mean, this could be really useful, incredibly useful, if you're doing TV and film dialogue stuff, because you can set this up as ambient spaces. Like if you wanted to do dialogue in a pub, you could set it up in that. You could put your chatter in the background into the main space, tweak it, have your foreground stuff, etc., etc. You can do all sorts of things with this, man. It's not just about music. And it would be very useful to anybody doing library music, because they can sort of straight away get that old school sound on things that they want. There's a lot of uses for this. And if you're doing any type of electronic music, don't think that this doesn't apply to you because it's from an old, studio from the old days using real instruments. This will work equally well on electronic music. I'll come back and do some stuff showing that as well. But because it's about ambience and space rather than big reverbs, this is going to be really cool for use on things like percussion instruments in beats, synthesizer patterns, anything that needs ambience and space rather than big reverb, right? But also it would be really cool for things like hard bass, to get emphasis to hard bass sounds and things like that. There's a lot you can do with this in electronic music, man, trust me. Okay, sure. Cheers. It's my Darth Vader mug. Inside it says, "I am your father." No! Such your feelings. You know it to be true. Right, I hope that's useful. Please subscribe, and I'll see you for more videos soon. Oh, and let me know what you think, and let people know what you think in the comments below, man. Alright? See you soon.